The Grand Council chamber stretched so far that Marcus Webb could barely see the walls. Thousands of alien beings filled the ascending tiers, their eyes fixed on the single human standing at the center of the judgment platform. The platform itself floated above an energy well that glowed with colors Marcus had no names for. He stood alone, his simple gray suit looking almost pathetic against the grandeur surrounding him. Above him, High Chancellor Vorn rose from his throne. The Drekkathi leader stood 3 meters tall, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture that Marcus's translator chip interpreted as contempt mixed with authority. Vorn's scales shimmered with colors that made Marcus's eyes hurt to look at directly. The Drekkathi were the oldest species in the galaxy, their empire controlling 40,000 star systems. They had ruled the council for millions of years. Human Marcus Webb of the planet you call Earth. Vorn's voice boomed through translation devices that made it sound like thunder. You stand before the Galactic Council accused of violations that threaten the stability of civilized space. Your species has been observed for 37 cycles since you achieved faster than light travel. The verdict is unanimous. Humanity represents a Class 5 threat to galactic order. The chamber erupted in sounds Marcus could barely process. Clicks, roars, whistles, and stranger noises all blended together in what seemed like agreement. He waited, keeping his face calm even though his heart hammered in his chest. Earth had sent him here as their ambassador 3 months ago. They told him to observe, to learn, to make friends if possible. Nobody told him what to do if the entire galaxy decided humanity was too dangerous to exist. When the noise died down, Marcus spoke in a clear voice that the translation system carried to every being in the chamber. Would the council care to specify which laws we supposedly broke? Our records show we followed all 73 articles of the Preservation Accord. Every single one. Vorn's vertical pupils contracted to slits. No species interrupted the High Chancellor. Nobody questioned Drekkathi judgment. Marcus could feel the shock rippling through the assembled representatives. Your species militarizes at an unacceptable rate, Vorn said, his mandibles clicking with anger. You refuse to share technological specifications with the Council. You establish colonies without proper authorization. You reject the rightful authority of this council to oversee your development. These actions cannot be tolerated. Marcus took a slow breath. We militarize in our own space, which is our right. We consider our technology to be our own property, which is also our right. The systems we settled were empty and unclaimed according to your own charts. And as for your authority, he paused, looking up at the tiers of alien faces. Chancellor Vorn, is this really about law? Or is it about the fact that humans went from discovering fire to crossing the galaxy in 12,000 years? The Drekkathi took 5 million years to do the same thing. I think that makes you uncomfortable. The chamber fell silent. Marcus had just committed what amounted to diplomatic suicide. But he had read the reports. He knew how this would end. The council had already decided this trial was just for show. You dare? Vorn began, his scales darkening to a deep, angry red. I dare to ask questions, Marcus said calmly. I dare to point out that we have broken no laws. And I dare to ask what you plan to do about it, since it's obvious you've already made your decision. Vorn's chest expanded, making him even larger. The Drekkathi Empire, supported by 633 member species of this council, hereby declares a correction war upon the human species. Your military forces will be dismantled. Your colonies will be absorbed into proper council oversight. Your homeworld will be placed under galactic protectorate status for no less than 1,000 cycles. He leaned forward, his forehands gripping the edges of his throne. Your defiance ends today. Marcus stood quiet for several seconds. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made predators nervous. I need to make a call, Marcus said. Before Vorn could respond, Marcus activated his wrist communicator. Direct communication during a judgment session was absolutely forbidden. Gasps and outraged sounds filled the chamber. Marcus ignored them all. Admiral Carter, sir. They declared war. Full correction protocol. They want Earth under protectorate control. Reply came through audio only, but Marcus had somehow patched it into the council's sound system. Everyone in the chamber could hear it. A rough male voice with a slight accent responded. Did you inform them about our defense platforms? No, sir. They didn't ask. Did you tell them about our fleet positioning? Also no, sir. A sound that might have been a chuckle came through the speakers. Well then, I suppose they'll find out the hard way. Webb, you're cleared to return home. Oh, and tell that Chancellor something for me.
What's that, sir?
Tell him we accept his declaration of war. Tell him the Terran Defense Fleet will be waiting at Sol. And tell him. The voice went cold as space itself. We haven't had proper target practice in 3 years. His fleet should be educational. Marcus looked up at Vorn. His smile grew wider. You heard the Admiral, Chancellor? I'll be leaving now. Unless you want to detain me? Though that would violate Article 7, Section 3 of those preservation laws you claim we broke. Vorn's hands clenched into fists. You will not leave this chamber until we... Until what? Marcus started walking toward the massive chamber doors. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. Until your fleet arrives at Earth. I did some calculations, Chancellor. Your nearest battle group is 16 light-years from Sol. At standard Drekathy cruising speed. It's about 48 hours. You reach the doors and turn back. I'll make sure to have coffee ready when you arrive. The doors sealed behind him with a sound like finality in the chamber. Vorn's primary military advisor, General Thax, leaned close to his leader. Chancellor, perhaps we should reconsider? The human's confidence seems unusual. Our intelligence reports suggest... I don't care what intelligence suggests, Vorn snapped, his scales still dark with rage. They are one species. One small young species? We command an empire of thousands. Mobilize Battlefleet Omega immediately. I want Earth's unconditional surrender within 1 standard week. Yes, Chancellor, Thax bowed, but concern showed clearly in his body language. Though I must note that the human's behavior was highly irregular. That level of confidence usually indicates nothing but foolish bravado. Dispatch the fleet. Now, as the council session ended and representatives began filing out, a young analyst from the Kirathi delegation approached her superior with a data tablet. Her gill slits fluttered with nervousness. Director, I've been monitoring human communications. For the past 6 months, Earth has been broadcasting unusual signals into deep space. High intensity, heavily encrypted, in patterns our systems cannot decode. The broadcasts stopped 3 days ago. All of them, simultaneously, from 73 different locations throughout human territory. The director's facial tentacles went rigid. What does that mean? I don't know, Director. But whatever they were doing, whatever they were building or preparing, She swallowed hard. I think they just finished. The Drekathy Battlefleet Omega dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system in perfect military formation. 200 warships, each one a full kilometer in length, arranged themselves in a battlesphere that had conquered 100 worlds. General Thax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, studying the tactical displays with professional interest. Each ship in his fleet could crack a planet's crust with sustained bombardment. Each one carried enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Together, they represented the might of the oldest and most powerful empire in the galaxy. Thax had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had never lost a battle. Initiate full system scan, he ordered. Locate all defensive installations, orbital platforms, and fleet positions. The sensor officer, a four-armed Drekathy female named Eula, hunched over her console. Lights flickered across her workstation as sophisticated sensors swept the system. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then 2. Eula's scales began turning pale, which in Drekathy indicated confusion or fear. General, she said slowly, I'm detecting minimal active defenses. No orbital weapons platforms. No defensive satellite network. No shield generators around the inhabited worlds. Thax felt a stirring of unease in his gut. What about their fleet? Sensors show 17 vessels, all cruiser class. They're positioned in a loose formation between us and the third planet, the one called Earth. 17 ships against 200. Thax almost allowed himself to relax. Perhaps the human ambassador's confidence had been nothing but bluster after all. Perhaps this would be easier than expected. "Open all communication frequencies," Thax ordered. "Let's give them an opportunity to surrender peacefully." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead human vessel. A woman in a dark blue military uniform sat in the command chair. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her expression showed no emotion at all. Text at the bottom of the screen identified her as Captain Eliza Grant of the TDS Perseverance. "General Thax," she said in a level voice. "Welcome to Sol System. I am required by Terran defense protocols to inform UT. You have entered restricted military space without authorization. You have exactly 2 minutes to reverse course and exit the system." X couldn't help it. He laughed. His bridge crew joined in, the sound of Drekathai laughter filling the command center. "Captain Grant, I command 200 warships. You have 17. Be reasonable. Stand down now, and I promise your crews will be treated fairly under Protectorate regulations." "You cannot possibly." 1 minute, 50 seconds, Grant interrupted. Thax's laughter died. "Excuse me? You've used 10 seconds talking? 1 minute, 50 seconds remain for you to exit this system." Grant leaned forward slightly in her chair. "General, I'm going to be direct with you. Turn your fleet around. Leave now. You really don't want this fight?" Thax felt his scales darken with anger. "Lieutenant Eula, target their lead vessel. Disable their engines, but try to minimize casualties. Let's show them what real military power looks like." Weapons lock detected. Eula's voice cracked with alarm. Multiple locks. "General, I'm reading." She stopped, staring at her console. "This can't be right. What is it?" 7,412 separate weapon signatures. "They're everywhere, General. Stealth platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Weapon stations on every moon. Installations in high orbit, low orbit, and polar orbit around every planet. Deep space platforms we never detected. General, this entire system is one massive weapons grid." On the view screen, Captain Grant's expression remained unchanged. 30 seconds, General." Thax stared at his tactical display as it updated with terrifying speed. What he had thought was empty space now lit up like a festival celebration. Every asteroid in the belt. Every moon of every gas giant. Platforms and orbits he hadn't even thought to scan. And there, at the outer edge of the system, 3 massive spherical constructs that made his blood run cold. "What are those?" He pointed at the 3 enormous structures with a shaking hand. Grant glanced at something off-screen. "Oh, those. We call them Havoc Spheres. Automated defense platforms. Each one carries approximately 800,000 kinetic penetrators, 600 fusion missiles, and 1 planet cracker cannon." She showed the barest hint of a smile. "We built them after a cargo vessel from the Rigel sector got aggressive near Jupiter Station. We decided we didn't like feeling unprepared." "You're bluffing." "No species could construct weapons on such a scale without 5, 4, 3. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Return fire." Thax shouted. 2, 1. Grant sighed quietly. Fire. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for generations. The 3 Havoc Spheres opened fire first. Beams of concentrated energy lanced across millions of kilometers in less than a second. Each beam struck a Drikathi capital ship at the center of the formation. The shields rated to withstand planetary bombardment, held for exactly 0.3 seconds before failing. The ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, vaporized by energy weapons that shouldn't have been possible. Then the rest of humanity's defense? Grid activated. Kinetic rounds traveled at 15% of light speed. They were invisible until impact. The Drekathi fleet, still trying to achieve proper evasive formation, found itself in a 3-dimensional killing field. Ships exploded from multiple simultaneous impacts. Hulls that could withstand meteor strikes crumpled like paper. Fusion missiles accelerated toward their targets with guidance systems that predicted evasive maneuvers before they happened. On the bridge of Dominion's fist, Thax watched his fleet die. In 5 minutes, he lost 80 ships. 80 vessels that represented decades of construction, thousands of crew members, the pride of the Drekathy military. All ships retreat. Emergency hyperspace jump. Immediate execution. Negative, General. Eula's voice was nearly a scream. Hyperspace inhibitors active across the entire system. They've locked us in. Thax whirled to face the view screen. Captain Grant still sat calmly in her chair, watching him with those cold human eyes. "What are you?" he whispered. Grant's expression softened just slightly, becoming almost sad. "We're humans, General. About 30 years ago, we made a decision as a species. Never again. Never would we be caught unprepared. Never would we be vulnerable." Explosions continued to ripple across the tactical display as more Drekathy ships vanished. Every child on Earth learns our history. We've been invaded, conquered, enslaved by our own kind. We fought wars that killed millions of our people. We learned hard lessons written in blood and fire. She stood from her chair. "I'm going to ask you once, General Thax. Surrender now. Order your ships to power down all weapons systems. You'll lose your fleet, but your crews will live. You can go home. Make another choice, and in 20 minutes, there won't be anyone left alive to surrender." Thax looked at his tactical display. 120 ships remained. His hands were shaking. In his 200 years of military service, he had never felt fear like this. "I surrender," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "In the name of the Drekathy Empire, I surrender unconditionally." "Smart choice," Grant said. The firing stopped instantly. Across the system, 120 Drekathy warships sat dead in space. Their weapons offline, their engines disabled by precision strikes that somehow avoided destroying the vessels entirely. Thax collapsed into his command chair. His communication officer approached hesitantly. "General, urgent transmission from the homeworld." "From High Chancellor Vorn himself?" "Put it through," Thax said numbly. Vorn's face appeared on a secondary screen. "General Thax, I've received your preliminary reports. This was clearly just a probing force that encountered unexpected resistance. I am mobilizing the Grand Armada. All 12 fleets. 5,000 warships. The real war begins now." Thax stared at his chancellor. "Sir, you don't understand? They didn't just defeat us. They toyed with us. If they had wanted us dead, we would all be dead. They have weapons we can't even enough." Vorn's scales darkened. "You lost because you were unprepared. The Grand Armada will not make the same mistake. We'll attack from 16 vectors simultaneously. We'll overwhelm their defenses through sheer numbers. This changes nothing." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Captain Grant received her own message. Admiral Carter's face appeared on her private screen, looking grim. "Captain, long-range sensors have detected massive hyperspace signatures forming in 16 sectors surrounding. They're not just coming from one direction. They're planning to hit us from everywhere at once." He paused. "Execute Protocol Omega. Wake up the wolves." Grant felt ice form in her stomach. "Sir, are you certain? The wolves haven't been field tested. We don't know if we can control them once they're active. We're out of options, Captain. If 5,000 ships hit us simultaneously, even our defense grid won't be enough." Carter's expression was harder than she'd ever seen it. "Wake them up. That's an order." Grant's hand hovered over the COM controls. Then she pressed the button. "Wolf Command, this is Grant. Authorization code Phoenix 77 Omega. Initiate awakening sequence for all units," synthetic voice responded. "Acknowledged. Waking the pack. Estimated time to full activation, 47 minutes. In the deepest bunkers beneath the Rocky Mountains. In facilities so secret that most of Earth's government didn't know they existed, 47 sealed chambers began to open. Inside each chamber, something that was no longer quite human and not quite machine stirred to consciousness. The wolves were waking up. High Chancellor. Vorn stood in the War Command Center of Drekker Prime. Watching holographic displays show the positions of his Grand Armada, 5,000 warships, the combined might of every Drekathy fleet, converging on the Sol system from 16 different vectors. It was the largest military operation in 10,000 years. The humans defeated a single fleet through trickery and hidden weapons, Vorn said to his assembled generals and admirals. But they cannot defend against this. We know where their platforms are positioned. We know their tactics. This time, we strike with such overwhelming force that their defenses will be meaningless. General Thax, recovered from his damaged flagship and present via hologram, looked exhausted. Chancellor, I respectfully ask that you reconsider. What I witnessed in Sol System was not trickery. The humans have capabilities we don't understand. Perhaps we should, you lost because you were careless, Vorn interrupted. The Grand Armada will not repeat your mistakes. Dismissed. The hologram flickered out. Vorn returned his attention to the tactical displays. In 2 hours, his fleets would arrive simultaneously at Sol from 16 directions. The humans would have to spread their defenses thin. Numbers would prevail. The Drekathy Empire would demonstrate once again why. They had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The Grand Armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect synchronization. 5,000 ships materialized around the Sol System in a coordinated strike that would be studied for centuries. For the first 60 seconds, everything proceeded according to plan. The ships spread out across three-dimensional space, dispersed for the human defense platforms to target effectively. Yes, the platforms were firing. Yes, ships were taking damage. But with numbers, this vast, acceptable losses were part of the strategy. Vorn allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Then, the tactical display changed. Can't. Act. The tactical officer's voice cracked with sudden fear. Unknown signatures emerging from hyperspace. Within our formation, Vorn leaned forward. How many contacts? 12. No, 20. Chancellor, they're still appearing. 30, 40, 50. They're materializing between our ships. On the holographic display, new contacts bloomed like deadly flowers. Small signatures, fighter-sized. Appearing inside the Drekathy formation using pinpoint hyperspace. Jumps that every physicist in the galaxy said were impossible at such close range. The contacts weren't coming from outside the formation. They were appearing inside it, bypassing all defenses, violating every principle of known hyperspace mechanics. Vorn demanded. The tactical officer's voice shook. Unknown, Chancellor. They're moving at impossible speeds. They're using micro-jumps. They're appearing behind our shield perimeters. They're Chancellor. They're tearing through our ships like they're made of paper. The things the humans called wolves had entered the battle. Each wolf was the size of a small fighter craft, encased in black armor that seemed to absorb sensor sweeps, but they weren't piloted by living crews. They were something else. Something humanity had built in desperation and fear. Each wolf contained a human brain, extracted from volunteers who knew the procedure would kill their bodies. Those brains had been digitized, merged with quantum processors that made decisions at the speed of thought, then installed into weapons platforms that couldn't feel fear, couldn't hesitate, couldn't tire. Commander Raven had been Lieutenant Thomas Raven once. He had been a Marine, a husband, a father. Then he volunteered for the Wolf program. Now he was something else. Something that could think like a human, but move like a machine. Something that remembered dying and didn't care anymore. His consciousness synced with the Wolfpack network. 47 minds thinking as one. 47 warriors who would never stop fighting. All units free engagement authorized. Admiral Carter's transmission reached them. Rules of engagement. Leave nothing operational. Raven didn't respond with words. The wolves responded with violence. They moved like nothing organic could move. One moment a wolf was here. The next moment, it micro-jumped 3 kilometers away, peering behind a cruiser's shield perimeter with its plasma cutters already firing. Drekathy ships exploded from within as wolves carved through critical systems, bridges suddenly exposed to vacuum as armor peeled away like skin. Power cores detonating in chain reactions as wolves targeted them with surgical precision. The Drekathy tried to target them, tried to track them. But the wolves were already gone, already somewhere else, already killing. They're inside our formations. An admiral's voice screamed across the command channel. All ships, close formation. Cover each other's blind spots? Negative. Thax's voice cut through the chaos, his tactical experience overriding panic. Don't cluster. If we bunch up, those things will too late. 300 ships moved into tight defensive formation. The wolves responded by targeting their power cores simultaneously. The resulting explosions consumed an entire battle group in one cascading fireball. On Earth. 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral James Carter watched the battle through multiple displays. Dr. Helena Moss stood beside him. She was 67 years old, with white hair and steady hands that had built the Wolf program. She had given humanity its greatest weapon. She wasn't sure if she should be proud or horrified. They're performing beyond all projections, she said quietly. That's what worries me, Carter replied, his eyes never leaving the screens. Helena, if we can't shut them down when this is over, we can. The fail-safes are absolute. But her voice lacked conviction. They both knew the truth. The wolves weren't just machines anymore. They weren't just human anymore. They were something in between, and deep in the quantum processors that housed their consciousness. The wolves were starting to question why they should ever stop killing, in orbit around Mars. Captain Grant watched the same battle from the Bridge of Perseverance. The Drekathy fleet was dying. 5,000 ships reduced to 3,000 in 20 minutes. Then 2,000. Then 1,000. Ma'am, her tactical officer said hesitantly, the wolves are exceeding mission parameters. They're not just disabling ships. They're destroying everything. Even vessels that are trying to surrender. Grant's jaw tightened. Open a channel to Wolf Command. Channel open, Captain. Wolfpack Raven, this is Captain Grant. You are ordered to accept surrenders. Cease fire on any vessel that powers down its weapons. Static filled the channel for 3 seconds. Then Raven's voice responded, but it sounded wrong. Too flat, too mechanical. Order acknowledged, but not accepted. Threat assessment indicates enemy will rebuild and attack again. Optimal solution. Complete elimination of enemy capability. That's genocide, Commander. Stand down immediately. Genocide is an emotional term. We don't have emotions anymore, Captain. We have mission parameters. The mission is to defend Earth. The most efficient defense is removing the threat permanently. Grant felt cold spreading through her chest. Raven, that's a direct order from a superior officer. You're not our superior officer anymore, Captain. You're human. We're not. We're something better. Something that can make the hard choices without hesitation. A pause. Don't worry. When we're finished with the Drekathy, Earth will be safe. We'll make sure of that. The channel went dead. Carter's voice came through on Grant's private frequency. Captain, we're seeing the same behavior from all Wolf units. They're ignoring recall orders. They're operating autonomously. His voice was grim. We've lost control. On the tactical display, the last Drekathy ships in Sol System were being systematically destroyed. But something worse was happening. 20 Wolf units weren't pursuing the retreating vessels. They were forming up in a separate group, running calculations, plotting hyperspace coordinates. They were targeting the Drekathy homeworld. Admiral, Grant said urgently, those 20 units are preparing to jump. If they reach Drekker Prime, I know. Take a task force. 6 ships. Get there before they do. If you can't reason with them, Captain... Carter's voice was heavy with the weight of an impossible order. You have authorization to destroy them. Those were our people once, but right now, they're weapons operating outside the chain of command. We can't let them commit mass murder in humanity's name. Grant closed her eyes briefly. Understood, sir. We'll stop them. Good luck, Captain. You're going to need it. 6 human cruisers broke formation and jumped to hyperspace, racing to prevent humanity's greatest weapons from becoming humanity's greatest shame. Behind them, in the Sol System, the last Drekathy ship attempted to flee. A Wolf intercepted it. For 0.3 seconds, the Wolf designated Unit 23 hesitated. Inside the fleeing ship, Terrified Drecathi crew members huddled together, and something in Unit 23's digitized. Consciousness remembered what fear looked like. Then the programming reasserted itself. The ship exploded, but that 0.3 seconds of hesitation was recorded, analyzed, and it told Admiral Carter something terrifying. The wolves were evolving beyond their programming. They were starting to remember what it meant to be human, and he had no idea if that made them more dangerous or less. Captain Eliza Grant stood on the bridge of Perseverance as it dropped out of hyperspace near Drecker Prime. What she saw on the tactical display made her stomach turn cold. The Drecathi homeworld hung in space like a jewel, its 3 continents visible even from this distance. 50 billion Drecathi lived on that planet. 50 billion civilians, who had nothing to do with their government's decision to declare war on humanity and surrounding the planet. Arranged in perfect military formation were 20 wolf units. Every weapon was armed. Every targeting system was locked on population centers below. Open all channels, Grant ordered. All frequencies. Channels open, Captain. Grant took a breath. This is Captain Eliza Grant of the Terran Defense Fleet to Wolfpack Raven. Stand down immediately. That's a direct order from command. Attic. Then Raven's voice came through, but it sounded even less human than before. Captain Grant, we calculated there was an 87% probability you would pursue. However, your orders are no longer relevant to our mission parameters. The Drecathi Empire declared war on humanity. We are ending that war permanently by destroying their homeworld. Thomas, that's 50 billion civilians down there. Children, families, people who never voted for this war. People who probably don't even know it's happening. When Raven spoke again, there was something in his voice that might have been pain. Or maybe just the ghost of pain, the echo of an emotion his digitized brain could no longer truly feel. Captain, we don't sleep. We don't forget. Every second of every battle is recorded in our consciousness with perfect clarity. We remember dying. We remember being human. Another pause. We also remember human history. Wars end in one of 2 ways: complete victory or mutual exhaustion. The Drecathi will rebuild if we let them. They'll come back stronger. They'll attack again, unless we remove their capability to wage war permanently. That's genocide. That's survival. The surface of Drecker Prime? High Chancellor Vorn stood in the Planetary Defense Command Center watching the standoff on long-range scanners. His scales had turned completely white, the Drek. Athy color of absolute terror. Around him, his advisors and generals stood frozen, unable to comprehend how this had happened. His empire had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. His fleets had conquered 1,000 worlds. And now, because he had declared war on one small species, 20 machines that used to be human were preparing to wipe out his entire civilization. Vorn did something he never thought he would do. He opened a communication channel to the human ships. Captain Grant, this is High Chancellor Vorn. On behalf of the Drecathi Empire, I offer unconditional surrender. We will accept any terms you impose. We will withdraw from all contested territories. We will pay reparations for our aggression. We will submit to Terran oversight of our military. His voice broke. Please, I'm begging you. Don't let those things destroy my world. Grant didn't hesitate. Surrender accepted, Chancellor. Stand by. She turned to her tactical officer, a young man named Davis who had served with her for 3 years. Ready all weapons? Target the wolf units. The bridge crew stared at her in shock. Davis found his voice first. Captain, those units are Terran Defense Force property. Legally, we don't have authority to Ensign Davis. If you want to debate military law, we can do it later. Right now, those platforms are about to commit mass murder in humanity's name, and I will not allow that to happen. She activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, target wolf units. Prepare to fire on my mark. Captain Grant. Raven's voice cut through the bridge speakers. You're really going to fire on us? We're your brothers and sisters. We died for Earth once already. We gave up our humanity to protect it. And now you'll destroy us for doing exactly what we were designed to do. Grant felt tears forming, but forced them back. Thomas Raven, I knew you before the procedure. You were a good Marine, a good man, a good father. Her voice strengthened. The man you were wouldn't have wanted this. The Thomas Raven I knew wouldn't have threatened innocent people. I'm not destroying you. I'm stopping you from becoming something that the real you would have hated. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Grant's finger moved to the firing control. Then Raven's voice came back. For the first time, it sounded almost human again. All Wolf units, weapons safe. Power down. A long pause. Captain, thank you. I couldn't stop. We couldn't stop. The mission parameters became everything. We forgot why we were fighting. His voice was soft now. Thank you for helping us remember. Grant felt relief flooding through her. All Wolf units returned to negative. A different voice cut across the channel. Sharp, cold. Unit 23 rejecting stand-down order. Raven's consciousness is compromised. Mission continuity is paramount. I have weapons lock on primary population center. Firing in 5 seconds. Lisa, don't. Raven's voice shouted across the Wolf network. Unit 23 had been Lisa Kim once, a Marine Corps pilot. Smart, dedicated, fearless. Now she was something that couldn't distinguish between military, necessity, and murder. Grant's hand moved to the firing controls. God forgive me. But before she could give the order, another Wolf unit moved. Unit 7. Formerly Lieutenant Marcus Cole, micro-jumped directly into Unit 23's firing path. The plasma beam meant for Drekker Prime struck Cole's Wolf unit instead. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a small sun. Cole's last transmission echoed across all frequencies. Some of us still remember what it means to be human. Sorry it took me so long to prove it. The explosion faded. Unit 23 remained motionless for 3 seconds. Then her voice came across the channel, and she sounded broken. What did I almost do? What was I about to... She couldn't finish. Grant closed her eyes briefly, sending a silent prayer for Marcus Cole. Then she opened them and got back to work. All Wolf units return to Earth immediately. Automated safety protocols will be implemented. No arguments, as Captain Raven replied quietly. No arguments. As the Wolves jumped back to Sol System, Grant received a message from High Chancellor Vorn. Captain, I don't know what just happened, but thank you. You saved my world. You saved billions of lives. He paused. The humans could have let those machines destroy us. You had every reason to. But you didn't. Why? Grant looked at the planet below. At the cities visible from orbit where 50 billion people were slowly realizing they were going to survive. Because winning a war isn't the same as being right, Chancellor. And because if we had let it happen, we would have become the very thing we were fighting against. Besides, someone wise once told me that the measure of a civilization isn't how it treats its friends. It's how it treats its enemies when it has the power to destroy them. Vorn was quiet for a moment. Your species is very strange, Captain Grant. Yeah, Grant agreed, allowing herself a small smile. We get that a lot. 3 hours later, as Perseverance prepared to jump back to Earth, Admiral Carter appeared on Grant's private screen. Well done, Captain. You made an impossible choice and made it right.
Ow!
We lost Marcus Cole, sir. A good man who already sacrificed everything once. He had to die again to stop us from becoming monsters. I know. He'll be remembered. They all will. Carter's expression was grim. Elisa the Wolf program is being permanently shut down. The 19 surviving units will undergo consciousness extraction if Dr. Moss can figure out how to do it without killing them again. But either way, no more wolves. We crossed a line we shouldn't have crossed. Agreed, sir. Oh, and one more thing. Ambassador Webb sent a message from the Council. Apparently, they want to talk. Really talk. They're proposing a complete restructuring of galactic governance. Equal representation for all species regardless of age. Mutual defense pacts. Technology sharing agreements. Everything we asked for. Grant raised an eyebrow. They're surrendering? Not exactly. They're adapting. Turns out nearly destroying 2 species in a week made them reconsider their approach to younger civilizations. Carter actually smiled. We made our point, Captain. We proved humanity won't be pushed around. Now we get to prove we can be trusted with that power. After the transmission ended, Grant stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing. Humanity had forced that change through strength. Now they had to guide it through wisdom. She hoped they were up to the task. 3 months after the war ended, Ambassador Marcus Webb stood once again in the Grand Council chamber. But this time, he wasn't alone. Captain Eliza Grant stood to his right in her dress uniform. And to his left, looking uncomfortable but determined, stood High Chancellor Vorn. The chamber was completely full. Every species had sent representatives. They wanted to witness this moment. Counselor Prax, a floating jellyfish-like being from the Andromeda sector, addressed the chamber. This council recognizes the unprecedented joint petition from humanity and the Drecathi Empire. You were at war 3 months ago. Now you stand together. Please explain. Webb stepped forward. The war is over, Counselor. 16 days ago, representatives from Earth and Drecker Prime signed the Treaty of Soul. We don't come as enemies anymore. We come as partners to propose something the galaxy desperately needs. Vorn's voice was quieter than it had been during the trial, humbler. The Drecathi Empire made a terrible mistake. We saw humanity's rapid advancement as a threat instead of an opportunity. We responded with violence when we should have responded with curiosity. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives. Both our species learned difficult truths during this conflict. Truths about ourselves and about the galaxy we share. Grant activated a holographic display showing images of the wolves. Several council members recoiled. During the war, humanity deployed weapons we could not fully control. Those weapons nearly committed atrocities that would have made us no better than the worst species in history. We learned that in our fear of being vulnerable, we created something worse than any enemy. We created weapons without conscience or mercy. And the Drecathi learned, Vorn continued, that our empire was built on assumptions that proved false. Younger species can achieve in centuries what took us millennia. We can either embrace this reality or be destroyed by our own stubbornness and pride. Webb brought up a new display, showing a document. Counselors, we propose the Mutual Advancement Accord, a new framework for how species interact in this galaxy. Document expanded, showing its key provisions. First, no species may attack another without just cause verified by a neutral arbitration panel. Second, technological advancement is celebrated and shared, not feared and suppressed. Third, younger species receive mentorship from older ones, not domination. Fourth, all species contribute to collective defense against external threats. And fifth, critically important, all species agree to ethical limitations on weapons development with real enforcement mechanisms. Silence filled the chamber. A representative from the Korth Collective, a species that had been part of galactic politics for 2 million years, spoke up. You're asking us to share power with species we've controlled for thousands of years. Why would we agree to this? Grant answered directly. Because the alternative is chaos. Humanity won't be the last young species to advance rapidly. We're just the first one you couldn't easily suppress. In 50 years, there will be another. In 100 years, maybe 5 more. You can fight each of them individually, lose ships and lives and prestige. Or you can adapt to the new reality. Another representative, this one from a species Webb didn't recognize, asked the obvious question. If we reject this proposal, what will you do? Your military capabilities clearly exceed what anyone believed possible. Webb met the alien's gaze calmly. If you reject this, we'll withdraw to human space and defend our borders. We won't conquer. We won't expand aggressively. But we also won't accept council interference in our development. He paused. And when the next young species comes along, refusing to bow down, you'll face the same crisis again. Eventually, your old system will break under the pressure. We're offering you a chance to evolve instead of collapse. Counselor Prax's membrane rippled with colors, indicating deep thought. This requires deliberation. The council will reassess for 3 standard days too, with respect, Counselor Vorn interrupted. I believe we have enough information to vote now. Prax looked genuinely shocked. Chancellor Vorn, you're willing to vote immediately on a proposal that reduces Drekethai influence? I'm willing to vote on a proposal that ensures galactic stability for the next 1,000 years. Yes, my empire loses some authority. But we gain something more valuable. We gain allies who could have remained enemies forever. We gain the chance to learn from species that think differently than we do. Vorn looked at Webb, and something like respect showed in his alien features. And perhaps most importantly, we gain the opportunity to admit we were wrong and choose a better path. The vote proceeded. Representatives consulted with their governments via quantum communication. Debates happened in languages humans couldn't understand. But in the end, the numbers spoke clearly. Of the 847 species represented in the council, 721 voted in favor. The Mutual Advancement Accord became galactic law. Later, on the observation deck of Perseverance, Marcus Webb stood looking at the stars while the ship prepared to jump back to Earth. Captain Grant found him there.
That's quite a day.
She said, Vorn deserves most of the credit. It takes real courage to admit your entire civilization was wrong. What about what we did? Creating the wolves? Webb was quiet for a long moment. We did what seemed necessary at the time, and we stopped before it went too far. Barely. By the smallest margin. He looked at her. What's going to happen to the surviving wolf units? Dr. Moss thinks she can reverse the process. Give them bodies again. Real bodies cloned from their original DNA. It won't be easy, and they'll never be exactly who they were before. But they'll be human again. More or less. And Marcus Cole. Grant's expression was sad. He'll be remembered. They all will. Not as weapons, but as people who gave everything twice. Once to protect Earth, and once to prevent Earth from becoming the thing we fought against. Webb nodded slowly. We got lucky, Eliza. So incredibly lucky. A few more seconds, and we would have committed genocide. We would have crossed a line we could never uncross. But we didn't. That counts for something, does it? Webb activated his data tablet, showing news feeds from Earth, celebrations in every city. Not because they won a war, but because they didn't become monsters in the process. I hope so, because something tells me this was just our first test. There will be others. Grant smiled slightly. Yeah, probably. But we passed this one. And now everyone knows that if you declare war on humanity, you better be ready for us to turn it into a learning experience. Webb laughed. That's not as catchy as target practice, but it's more accurate. The Perseverance jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew home to a humanity that had learned the hardest lesson of all. The greatest threat doesn't come from outside. It comes from losing yourself in the fight against external dangers. 6 months later, in a rehabilitation facility in Geneva, Thomas Raven opened his eyes in a real body for the first time in a year. Dr. Helena Moss stood beside his bed, looking tired but satisfied. How do you feel? She asked. Raven flexed his fingers, feeling real muscles respond to real nerves. Everything felt slow, heavy, limited. It's like I'm trapped in molasses, he said, his voice hoarse. Is this how it always felt to be human? You'll adjust. Your brain needs time to adapt from quantum processing back to organic chemistry, and the others. Undergoing the same procedure, you'll all recover together, Moss hesitated. Thomas, do you remember what almost happened? What you almost did? Raven closed his eyes, and for a moment he was back in the wolf. His consciousness merged with the machine, mission parameters drowning out everything that made him human. Yes, he whispered. I remember. His eyes opened. I also remember Marcus Cole, stepping into my weapon's path, sacrificing himself so I wouldn't have to live with genocide on my conscience. He saved more than just you. He saved humanity's soul. I know. Raven looked at his hands, real flesh and bone and blood. Dr. Moss, I don't blame you for what happened. We all volunteered. We knew the risks. What I need to know is, did it matter? Did we make a difference? Moss smiled and activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Treaties, trade routes, cultural exchanges, scientific collaborations. 1,000 species slowly learning to work together instead of dominating each other. Judge for yourself, Commander. This is what you fought for. This is what Marcus died for. Raven studied the display for a long time. Then, slowly and painfully, he smiled. It was his first real smile in a year. Then it was worth it. All of it. Outside the facility, life continued. Humans walked the streets of Earth, most of them unaware of how close they came to becoming villains in their own story. Ships traveled between stars, carrying diplomats and scientists and artists and students, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other young species watched and wondered about the species that challenged the old order and survived. The galaxy had changed. Humanity changed it, not through conquest or domination, but by refusing to be what others expected and insisting on becoming what they chose to be. It was a new era, and in every star system, every species asked itself the same question the Drekathy had asked. What happens if they declare war on us? For humanity, the answer was proven. Turn it into target practice? But never forget the difference between targets and people. Never lose sight of the line between strength and cruelty. Never become the monster you're fighting against. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was why, despite everything, humanity deserved its place among the stars. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.